Welcome to part 2 of this week's instalment of Nobody Gets Out of Here Alive. My name is Holly Lyon-Hawk, and I will be taking you on a gentle, sometimes humorous and sometimes challenging meander through the myths, beliefs and ideas around all things end of and after life. Each week you will get to hear what various people's random thoughts are on the big question: what is the meaning of life? If you would like to share your thoughts, please send your voice clips in to me via WhatsApp, and I'll do my very best to include them. Also, each week there will be a section called Give the Flowers Now, which was inspired by my darling maternal grandfather, Roderick George Balcombe, who would say, "Don't leave it until the funeral to send flowers. Send people flowers now, telling them what they mean to you and how they have touched your lives." And I would love to hear from you. So if you have some flowers that you would like to send someone, please send me your voice clip telling me who it is and how they have touched your lives, along with your name, email address, and the name and home address of the person you are sending your flowers to. For each person who is featured, I will send some beautiful flowers to that person on your behalf. In this series of podcasts, I will be chatting with a whole range of guests, from sound artists, willow weavers, through to end-of-life doulas, and people who have had near-death experiences to help give you a more holistic, rounded view. It just may be a few new possibilities of how the inevitable can be approached, because remember, no one, not even you, gets out of here alive. Just touch on a little bit of that whole sensory experience of dying for everybody around,
Yeah. Well, gosh, there are so many subtle signs and sensory sort of aspects to the whole sort of time leading up to death, and actually that's it's quite a big part of soul midwifery as well, because going back to the time I spent in the hospice volunteering, I would often sit with the people who really didn't have any visitors coming. So I might spend hours with someone who just didn't have friends or family left anymore. And one of the things that fascinated me was I could see that there was a process that they seem to be going through. Although every death is individual and different, there are still some signs that death is approaching. And this fascinated me because I could really see similarities between people, even the things they were saying or the sort of dreams they were talking about having. I mean, there were whole sort of archetypal experiences going on, which I haven't got the depth to go into now, but it fascinated me. And I thought, why don't we know about these things? Why don't people talk about this? And why in Western medicine isn't this really recognized? There are a few things like, decreasing sociability and terminal agitation. There are a few little signposts recognized, but there was some, a plethora of really interesting, subtle signs that people are beginning to die. And so I did manic homework for about 20 years, actually. I had a sort of mad boffin hat on, and I thought, I really want to understand what this is, this whole process. I am going to find out. So what I did, and this was my journalist hat coming on probably, I just went into investigative mode, and I trawled other medical paradigms, so traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine and Tibetan medicine, because the Eastern medical paradigms had a much broader view on energy medicine and holistic medicine, again, going back to that. And I found that, in fact, over thousands of years, they had the most precise way of looking at the dying process and being able to work out where somebody was at by the things that were happening to them. And it was all there. It didn't have to be invented. It was there, but it was all in Chinese or Tibetan or whatever. So in fact, one of the things I might feel most proud of in a way is coming up with these stages of dying. And they're so complex, but also on another level, quite simple. So, the first stage, old age, people decreasing in their stamina and their appetite starts to go and they begin to look old. That would be one of the stages of dying. Then the next stage is people start to get melancholy and weepy and nostalgic. And then the next stage, they get fiery and they're burning off dross that they don't need to be taking with them. And then finally they go into the sort of the dreamy, floaty, sort of in and out of consciousness stage. And so going back to your question, there are all these progressive stages that people go through. And once you know them, they're incredibly recognizable. But again, people don't know them unless somebody can describe them. And I always find it quite an exciting moment teaching groups of medics, because we have a lot of doctors and nurses who become soul midwives, which again is quite a funny concept, but they come and I start talking about these 4 stages of dying and I can see them slightly beginning to roll their eyes thinking, well, we'll listen, but actually we probably know a bit more about this. Once you actually start unpacking these stages, they get quite excited. Oh, yes, we've seen that. Of course, this is all making sense now. So it's all quite interesting, really. So yes, so the sound of death, the smell of death, the sight of death, all actually slots into all these stages as well. So.
And to be talking about it so far in advance of, when we start, beginning that aging process, and and the fact that actually every single day it's a death of some sort, isn't it? We
absolutely, yeah. I mean, death is all around us all the time, and it's all so like, there are so many cycles, aren't there, of death, rebirth going on around us, and transition. I mean, just the physical death is just one thing, but yes, so we weave in and out of these processes anyway when we're well, and just going through the motions of being alive,
and to prepare to see it as that, see it as part of being alive, rather than having this looming thing that you try and ignore that's never going to happen, and then you reach it and you just it's all horrible, So people talk about a good death and a bad death. In your opinion, and you've been with many people, what would you define as a good death as opposed to a bad death, or a difficult, or maybe a bad death? Let's say bad death. Yeah.
Okay. Oh gosh. Yeah. And I've seen many of both. A good death, I think, is maybe easier to imagine. I mean, good symptom control, good pain relief, certainly is really important. And we're so lucky that we live in an age now where that is beautifully, it can be really well delivered most of the time. But I think to have the feeling that you have put your life in order in many ways, that you've told all the people that you really love them, that you've apologized for any of the things that haven't been great to the person that has been affected, to have had time to really process your life as well, and to sort of be able to step back and look in on it is important, and to be held and supported at the end of life by someone, whether it's a family member, partner or spouse, or someone like a soul midwife. I think it really genuinely does help. It makes such a difference to people when they are really, really supported. The difference between someone being very well supported on a very deep level is huge to someone who's dying alone and frightened and who hasn't done any preparation for the event at all. And that the contrast between the two is huge, absolutely huge.
Which sort of takes us on to a little of what's been happening in the last year and the amount of people who have had to die alone in hospital, and they've gone into hospital and they've not necessarily imagined that they wouldn't be coming out again. So I mean, it's heartbreaking. And all the families that have been involved with that, never mind, afterwards. What are your thoughts around people dying alone?
Yeah. Oh.
And I ask that with having in mind, maybe, because I know you have a very broad spiritual belief, don't you? So do you feel anybody truly does die alone, or do you feel that even if on the physical plane there's nobody there with them, that they die alone?
I'm with you. Yeah, it's a great question, Holly. It's a great question. I've always tried to have a really open mind about everything. And I work on having that, because it would be all too easy to have a lovely rosy glow about what's going to die. And that would be disingenuous, because our work has to be so authentic and so truthful but within a very loving framework. But I can honestly say that sitting with so many people at the end of life, I have been astonished by what I call the mysteries of dying. And, within all the great spiritual traditions, there is always recognition of the great mystery of death and the great mysteries around consciousness and consciousness expanding at death sometimes, or being ongoing. And I think, well, I've seen so many people right at end of life just having it as if they have some sense of being with somebody, of being held by something other than the physical people around them. And it is the most astonishing thing, but also energetically, and I work very energetically with people, you can feel them almost being surrounded by something, cocooned in love, even. You could call it that. It may not be that their husband or wife has come to get them, although I have had such a strong sense of that, especially when they may call out the name of someone, just minutes before death, and it's their wife or their child from many years ago. There is a sense that there is something, and it's almost intangible. It's very difficult to describe some of this because we don't have the language for it. But as Soul Midwives, again, we have a kind of a model for consciousness. At the beginning, when people are just diagnosed, we say they're in chaos because everything around them, they're a bit like vases that have been dropped, and the cracks are like chaos around them. Then there is a surrender time when people can't fight it anymore. They just have to sink into the flow of what's happening. And then right at the end, if you're only there with eyes to see and ears to hear, there is a transcendent moment, usually at point of death, when it's like this, and you know they're experiencing something, even though with our own eyes we might not be able to see it. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but that really is kind of how I feel it is. I don't think people die completely alone. I think there is something that comes in and
that's beautiful.
holds them.
Yes. And do you know, I couldn't agree more. I feel that so strongly. And I love the quote, Steve Jobs, wasn't it, as he died? And he was like, oh, wow.
He said it 3 times, and it was just an astonishing thing. And what a gift to humanity, because that one story went round the world 1 million times, and trillions of people will have thought, whoa, what was that all about? What was he seeing? And if you or I had done it, nobody would have taken any notice. But the fact it was Steve Jobs, it was a really cool. I love it.
Amazing. I just want to ask you a little bit about, you mentioned earlier about terminal agitation.
Yes.
Now, I know I meet quite a few people who are very distressed because the person that they've been looking after, their relative or whoever, has seemed very, very agitated and distressed towards end of life. Can you talk us through a little bit of what your feelings are around that? And
yes, it's actually a really common stage, and it comes sort of fairly shortly before actual death, maybe a few days before, maybe a week or so before, and it has 2 sort of strange things as well. One is, this terrible agitation, pacing about if they're out of bed, or if they're in bed and not able to walk anymore, a sort of strange plucking of the bedclothes. That's very characteristic of this. But a real kind of, they can't settle, they're anxious, very restless. It's also in our sort of deeper spiritual work, we say it's when the dark night of the soul comes. It's almost the lowest point, where people are really, they are just really feeling that everything has deserted them. They just feel bleak and gloomy and dark. It's very hard to support people because they look so distressed that you feel yourself sort of feeling distressed with them. And we have to know as soul midwives to just bring calm and love and serenity to that room, and it will pass, and to help relatives to see that. It's also very characteristic of the 3rd stage of the dying process. I mentioned earlier that people go through, and our model of the dying process is based on looking at earth, water, fire and air. And it's very much in the fire stage that people get this real agitation. I describe it as being Mother Nature's way of bringing stuff up to the surface to be released. And it's also accompanied often by a sort of what looks almost like a temperature or a fever. There's a real kind of heat that revs up. If you took their temperature, no, it's not raised, but to look at them, they're flushed, they're restless. Again, they're burning off the dross. They don't need to be taking this stuff with them, and it's being released. So if I'm with the family and this is happening, and they're distressed by watching it, I will gently try to describe it in those terms. It's just part of the process. It will go. Just, be calm, breathe, be loving, and that's the best you can be doing. So
because it can happen, can't it, that at that point families get so distressed, the person's then sedated because they think that that's the best thing for them. What are your thoughts around sedation and end of life?
I think, again, with careful and mindful holistic support, there is an awful lot we can do to really ease those symptoms. And so hopefully it would be less likely that sedation would need to be used. And I think, again, we have a role here in describing what's going on and using some holistic techniques to alleviate the anxiety that's happening. Sometimes sedation, it would be something that would be offered in a setting, in a clinical setting often, partly because it may be distressing to other patients and families as well. So there's always, that to bear in mind. But I'm a great believer in trying to do natural things first, see how that works. Don't get flustered, just be calm, be loving, and do some simple things. I mean, we have an exercise we use when people have got terminal agitation, and it's miraculous, and it's so simple that anyone could learn it. And I know we're not visual at the moment, but it's a bit like arm wrestling. So you hold the arm and of the fractious person, and then you would go round in a circle, just holding their arm. Now, and you'd maintain eye contact with them as well. And you just speak very, very lovingly and very slowly. And you do a few cycles like that. And in fact, what it does is it muddles the brain into cutting out the agitation, so you can bring someone right back down again into their bodies, and give them some time to recover from the agitated behavior. So it's desperately simple.
How lovely.
It makes such a difference,
yes,
when you do that. So, if
and
you're in that situation,
this is the thing, isn't it? It's that, there's such where we've gone so much into technology, but technology is coming, and drugs and everything. And the whole sort of seesaw's completely out of kilter, isn't it? And it's slowly just bringing it back so that we can use all of it. Holistic care. So important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can just do that a few times in an hour, and you've made such a difference to that whole person's sort of being.
Yes.
So
it's, that's lovely. And so if anybody wants to train as a soul midwife, how do they go about it? What's involved, and what's required of them? Can anyone do it?
Well, yes, anybody can do it. With training.
Yes.
I always say we're nearly almost all of us are soul midwives at heart, because it's an ancestral thing in our bones. As I was saying, generations and generations of us have sat with the dying, so that it's there in the cellular memory. Yes, we really do welcome people from all walks of life and all ages. Our youngest soul midwife is about 23, and our oldest one is about 89.
Lovely.
We have men and women, and we have a lot of medical professionals who do it, but we have also a lot of complementary therapists. But we also have, and I think this is really important, we have a lot of men and women who are salt of the earth. They have been round the block a few times, and they have just got warm hearts and a feeling that they want to really be sitting with someone who's dying. So I think that's one of the strengths, because people dying come in all shapes and sizes and all walks of life. And in a way, we bring in that mix. So we're not sort of saying, oh, well, you have to be this and you have to be that. We're saying, we're sure you can do this, but we need to show you how to, because you need to be a safe pair of hands at the bedside. You need to remember that not only are dying people fragile and vulnerable, and so are their families, but also you are the person sitting there, unless you're really well supported and properly trained. So people, if they're interested, should come on an introductory day. Where they'll hear lots of stories, learn some very simple skills, and at the end of that, they will know really if it's for them or not. If they would then like to progress, all our courses at the moment are still Zoom based because of COVID, but we've got it down to an absolute fine art, and they would need to come on one of our we have a 2-day, very intense, very, very intense course over a weekend, which is also followed up by some learning at home modules, which then have to be handed in. Once those have all been signed off and checked and marked, then everyone is assigned to a regional mentor, and they will then gather together on a voluntary basis some experience working with dying people, and they're, as I say, supported and mentored through that. And they have to then get together case studies to show how they've used their skills. And once all the case studies are completed, then they can be up and running and out in their community. So we have soul midwives who are working independently as soul midwives within their local communities, also some in hospitals and hospices, and also care homes. So there are lots of different ways that soul midwives are out actually doing their work. Some are paid for their work and others do it on a voluntary basis. So there's, again, quite a lot of spectrum in that.
And if somebody wants to have a soul midwife to support them through the journey to death, how would they go about finding one?
Yeah, so we at Soul Midwives, we've got our database of all qualified soul midwives who are insured and ready to practice. So we get lots of inquiries to the office, and then within 24 hours we will try and get a local soul midwife to them to make contact. Also, a lot of it's done by word of mouth, but increasingly it's really exciting. We do have a lot more GPs referring to us as well, and that it really signifies how things have changed so much from the early days when really nobody knew what this work was about or could do. And now we do have GP referrals. We work alongside the existing medical teams so much more. We're really a part of that now. So we get referrals from medics as well. So
that's wonderful to hear. My gosh, to have referrals from GPs, it's really exciting, isn't it?
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And also they're using us in social prescribing now as well.
Good.
So, the world has really opened out. And in fact, COVID has made a big difference because I think it has really shown how helpful it can be to have people who aren't just clinicians sitting with the dying. Suddenly the penny has dropped that actually we're really quite a valuable pair of hands to have on board.
Absolutely.
So it's exciting times at the moment, certainly.
Wonderful. And are you writing a book at the moment? Have you got any more books coming out soon, or?
Well, I wish the day was 3 times as long, but I would like to write 2 more books, actually. Another one I'm working with sacred oils, which is a great sort of thing I love doing. And another thing, I'd really like to do a sort of stories about being a soul midwife. So sort of call the soul midwife.
I love that. That's great.
Because it would be so, it would show people what we do and how we do it. But I just need the hours in the day.
I know the feeling.
I'm sure.
So hard. So one question to you, one last question. It can be serious, profound, silly, whatever, doesn't matter. But what is the meaning of life to you?
Oh, Holly. Do you know, I really do think about this all the time. I really, really do. It fascinates me. Well, I really do subscribe to that idea that we are spiritual beings within a body having an earthly experience. So in a way, in a very simple way, I do feel like we're in one big classroom here. Mother Earth is the classroom, and we really get to to learn. We fail, we make terrible mistakes, things go badly wrong, but we also have this opportunity of having relationships with people and being able to express ourselves. So I sort of think it is a sort of a big cosmic experiment in a way, life. and I do think every day how incredibly precious it is. You know, even if we have a bad day, it's still the most precious thing, isn't it? To have woken up that morning and have the wonder of pulling the curtains and seeing the sky and seeing the land outside. It's just an extraordinary privilege being alive. So
I think that's beautiful. I do. I think that's lovely, and I think that's where we could really do with sort of taking on some of the ancient customs and things, in as much as starting the day with thanks,
yes,
ending the day with thanks, yes. Counting each and every blessing that we have, because
absolutely,
it can be, especially when you're going through a phase where you are learning by your mistakes, as we all do. We've
all done it,
and many times don't learn by our mistakes and keep on making that mistake. It can be,
been there and done that too.
Yeah, it can be quite soul destroying, can't it? But
definitely.
Yeah. Do you know, I was sharing with a friend on the way here, actually, that I was thinking a meaning of life to me today was literally spending a few hours watching 3 episodes of Poirot with my 21-year-old son, having so many giggles with him. It was just lovely. Last night, I thought I should be working, but I'm not going to, and we're going to watch Poirot. We used to watch it when he was little, and oh my God, we did. Oh, I was crying. He was making me laugh so much. So, yeah.
I love that, Holly. I absolutely love that. Well, you know, for me, my joy is being with I have a little granddaughter who's 2.5, and she talks so much. She never stops, but she's interested in everything. And just to get down on the ground with her and look at the earth with her eyes, it's the most extraordinary thing. I just love it. So
beautiful.
That's what I love doing.
Beautiful. Felicity, thank you so much for being here today. If people want to contact you, is it what's the website that they go to?
Okay, it's www.soulmidwives.co.uk.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Holly. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Bless you. This week, I would like to give the flowers now to my absolutely amazingly supportive, loving, funny, talented, clever, beautiful mummy, Jill Bridgestock, who has been such a support to all of us over the years, and has supported me in whatever I'm doing with such an open heart, with so much compassion and enthusiasm. And I truly couldn't have wished for a better mother if I tried. So, Mum, thank you. Thank you with all my heart for everything you have done. You're quite the most incredible woman who has been through so much, and yet you have come so far, and now you're doing such wonderful things. You're a light to so many people, and thank you. Thank you will never be enough for all your love and support for both Harvey and for myself. I love you with all my heart. Thank you, Mum. So that's all for now, and I would like to say a very big thank you for being brave enough to dare to listen to a podcast that talks about something we, as a nation, tend to prefer. Doesn't exist, doesn't apply to our lives. But no, it does. no one gets out of here alive, and being more aware and engaged helps us all to have a more positive experience when the time does come to either us or our family, friends and pets. If you'd like to subscribe, please visit www.hollylionhawk.com.